Every so often in NFL history, there will come a moment where a team is truly something special. Well, for the Detroit Lions in the 2024 season, they are one of those teams, and we're going to talk about it in this episode. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. It doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. My friends, I'm going to tell you something right now. The Detroit Lions for this year are, without a doubt, one of the best teams of all time. And the reason I can say that, the reason I believe it, is because of what the Lions have had to do and what they have done likewise as a result of that. What I'm specifically trying to get at here is that the Lions have accomplished things this year that have been absolutely ridiculous in spite of the circumstances that their team has had to deal with, despite the adversity they've had to deal with. And it's just absolutely crazy. I mean, you have to honestly stop and think about it for just merely a half a second here, because for me, the fact that the Lions have gotten to the point where they are, they have a 15-2 record, which is the best record in football, as one of my fans pointed out, because we have a better division record than the Chiefs do. So for me, it's like, okay, best record in football, number one seed in the NFC, back-to-back back-to-back division champions, pardon me. It's like, dude, the fact that the Lions have accomplished all of that, and yet our defense has been banged up practically majority of the year with serious injuries, and on top of that, our offense started out sluggishly for like the first 2 or 3 weeks, but yet our offense, our defense over the course of the season has been able to defy all expectations, even much more so than what they were when we started the season. Again, coming into this year, a lot of people had expectations the Lions were going to be Super Bowl contenders. But I do not think under any circumstance did they think that the Lions were going to be Super Bowl contenders with the circumstances they've gone through and at the same time be as good as they've been. Because it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs where the Lions have been barely winning games and been getting some lucky calls from the refs and a couple of lucky breaks and bounces from the football. The Lions have been just freaking dominating teams. It's not even been contests in a lot of them. And the Lions have been doing all of that while they've had to deal with the problems they've had to deal with. I can't think of a whole hell of a lot of teams over the course of NFL history that have done what the Lions have done and have done it to the degree they have. So, I decided to say for this episode, man, the sheer brilliance of the Lions has got to be something that the NFL is, as I said in my title, awestruck by. Now, awestruck means to be just like you are in absolute amazement and wonder. Like you are just absolutely speechless. And if you think about it, for crying out loud, there have been times we've listened to freaking broadcasters during, actual live games, and they're like, dude, I can't think of any other way. I can't think of how many more ways I can describe this Lions team. It's just gotten to a point where the Lions are just absolutely beyond words. And to prove it to you, I decided to say, okay, let's go back and do what I do best, which is compare and contrast history. Let's take a look at how the Lions as a team in 2024 are special, just like some of the more recent NFL teams. And what teams am I specifically referring to? I'm referring to the 2013 Denver Broncos, and I'm referring to the 1999, St. Louis Rams. Now, why is that the case? Well, you're about to find out, because by the time we're done with this episode, the compare and the contrast, plus just the sheer difference in some areas, is going to blow your mind. So let's take a look at that. We're going to first obviously start off with the offense, and then we're going to go through everything that goes with that, and then go to the defense on all of these teams. So this is going to be a bit of a very in-depth episode. When we take a look at the Lions offense from this year, and again, since the 2013 Broncos and the 1999 Rams only played 16 games, I'm only using the first 16 games that the Lions played, meaning I'm not using the Vikings game we just played, because that wouldn't be fair. It would be more stats and more data than what the other teams actually had. So to keep it fair, we're doing only 16 games. When you take a look at the Lions' statistical output on offense in comparative rankings at the time, this is what you're going to see with the Lions. Virtually every single damn ranking is in top 5 contention. In fact, the only 2 rankings that are outside of top 5 contention are rush average and rushing yards. Everything else, top 5. I mean, you have to think about this. An offense that's that damn prolific is hard as hell to stop. And the reason I can say that is because I'm comparing this offense to 2 of the most prolific offenses of all time, the 2013 Broncos and the 1999 Rams. Let's take a look at the 2013 Broncos, by far the most prolific offense of all time. When you take a look at their offense, as I put it up on the screen, you're just practically going to see nothing but ones, like just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's literally that through almost the entire freaking damn column. There's actually only 2 things that fall out of top 10 consideration, which is rushing yards and rushing average, which, gee, I wonder why. When you had Peyton Manning throwing the football for 5,500 yards, you're not going to run the ball a whole lot. But everything else is number 1 practically, and very few others are freaking, number 2, number 3, things of that nature. So there's a reason why the 2013 Broncos offense is obviously the most prolific of all time. And then we take a look at the 1999 Rams offense. Greatest show on turf. Again, what you're going to notice is at the time, this offense was the best in football. A literal crap ton of number 1 rankings. There was literally none that fell out of top 10, just like the Lions. But better than the Lions is that they only had 1 ranking that fell out of top 5, and that was rushing touchdowns, which was ranked tied 10th for the rest of the NFL. So why am I showing those stats? Well, let's just break it down really quickly here without putting up all the stats again. Number 1, the Lions offense how do I put this? The Lions offense is definitely more prolific. It's definitely more explosive than the 1999 Rams offense. Again, the Lions scored literally 99 more points. How do I say this? They scored more points than the 1999 Rams. Granted, it wasn't by a whole lot. It was only by about literally 6 or so points. So there's that. Then, on top of that, however, the Lions are more efficient on third down. They're more efficient in completion percentage, score drive percentage than the 1999 Rams. So the Lions are more efficient than the 99 Rams and better in explosion in terms of being an explosive offense. But the Broncos, on the other hand, obviously, like I said, most explosive offense, most prolific, but extremely unbalanced. I mean, for crying out loud, when you are throwing for 5,500 yards and you're not even cracking 2,000 rushing yards, that shows you just the extreme imbalance that offense had. But again, when you have Peyton Manning, that's kind of how it's going to be. But that's what I'm trying to get at here. And then when you take a look at the Rams offense in 1999, very similar to the Lions offense. It's much more balanced than the Broncos was, but I'm going to say this. The problem is that about 75% of the Rams' offensive scoring points on touchdowns came from the passing game, whereas with the Lions, only about 60% did. So again, more balanced than the Broncos, but not as balanced as the Lions. I kind of call the Lions' offense a happy medium, if you will, between the Broncos and the Rams. So that's the offensive comparisons overall. So again, there's a lot of comparative analysis that you can look at when you're talking about some of the best offenses that have ever played the game. But what about the men that lead the offense? You know exactly where I'm going with this. Jared Goff. When you take a look at the quarterbacks for all 3 of those offenses, you have Jared Goff, Peyton Manning, obviously, and Kurt Warner. So I'm going to put their stats up on the screen again through the 16 games they played. When you take a look at Jared Goff through the first 16 games he played, at the time he was tied for second in terms of pass completion percentage, ranked second in passing yards, ranked second in pass average, ranked fourth in passing touchdowns, ranked second in passer rating, ranked 8th in QBR. He at the time was 14-2. He had a perfect passer rating game, a perfect completion percentage game, 3 150-plus passer rating games, 725-plus passer rating games, 12 100-plus passer rating games, 5 80%-plus pass completion games, and 11 70%-plus pass completion games. Jared Goff, through the first 16 games of the 2024 season, was playing the position of quarterback almost as good as we've ever seen it. And what I mean by that is not in terms of quantitative stats. I'm talking about in terms of qualitative stats. To have the sheer amount of games that he's playing at such a high level is very, very hard to do. And the reason I can say that is because, wait a minute here, let's take a look at Peyton Manning, who was in charge of the most prolific offense in NFL history. When you take a look at his numbers over that 2013 season for his 16 games, Peyton Manning in that year was ranked third in completion percentage. He was first in passing yards, ranked third in passing average. He was ranked first in passing touchdowns, and he was ranked second in passer rating. He was ranked first in QBR, had a 13-3 record, but take a look at the difference in terms of the types of passer rating and completion percentage games. Peyton Manning never had a perfect passer rating game, never had a perfect completion percentage game. He only had 6 125-plus passer rating games, only 10 100-plus passer rating games, 3 80-plus percentage completion games, and 4 70-plus completion percentage games. So there's a vast difference in the qualitative measurement between Peyton Manning in 2013 versus Goff in 2024. Manning was more about putting up gaudy numbers. Goff was more about putting up qualitative numbers. Quality versus quantity. Now, when you take a look at Kurt Warner in 1999, you kind of get, again, a very similar mirror image to Jared Goff in 2024. In 1999, Kurt Warner was ranked first in the NFL for completion percentage, ranked second in passing yards, ranked first in passing average, ranked first in passing touchdowns, ranked first in passer rating. There was no QBR at that time, but he was also 13-3, had a perfect passer rating game. Just like Jared Goff. Had 150-plus passer rating game, which obviously was that perfect passing rating game. Had 4 125-plus passer rating games, 11 100-plus passer rating games, 2 80 completion percentage plus pass games, and 4 70% plus pass games in terms of completion percentage. So, again, Kurt Warner is a better comparison to Jared Goff. But again, when you're talking about the qualitative measurements between both Goff, Manning, and Warner, Goff's quality is much more sufficient, it's much more evident than either Manning or Warner's numbers are. Now, I'm not trying to say that, Jared Goff is better than Peyton Manning. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just simply saying that in the season that Goff has played, he has played much more efficiently than Peyton Manning ever did at any point during his career. I'm not saying that Goff is a better quarterback. I don't have an argument to base that on. But for this season alone, Jared Goff has played at a much higher qualitative measurement than Peyton Manning ever did. And let's think about this. If you were to take a look at Jared Goff's stats, Jared Goff already outsurpasses pretty much Kurt Warner. He's outdone him in everything in his 16 games, save passing touchdowns. Goff was only 5 passing touchdowns short. But Jared Goff outdid him in everything else. So I was like, okay, wait a minute here. What if I was to do the freaking comparison of Goff and Manning if Goff were to have thrown the same amount of passing attempts and pass completions that Peyton Manning did in 2013? When you actually do the math, what I did is I said, okay, Jared Goff completed 8.7 on average a throw through his 6 games. If you then take a look at the fact that Peyton Manning had 7 more completions on average per game, I then said, okay, 8.7 times 7, that's 61. You then multiply that by the 16 games, you get 976. 976 plus 4,398, which was where Jared Goff was in the 16th game, puts him at 5,374 yards. That means that had Jared Goff thrown the same type of, volume of passes that Peyton Manning did, he would only be about 100 yards short of Peyton Manning. And if you actually were to do the entire comparative analysis, like what I'm about to show you right now, this is what Jared Goff would look like if he had done that in total. Goff would have completed almost 77% of his passes for almost 5,500 passing yards, 8.7 an average a throw, 44 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions for 118 passer rating. My God, you want to talk about just an absolute season for the ages. That right there, to have that high of a completion percentage with that many passing yards and passing touchdowns, there is no way you would ever find another quarterback that could ever do that. Forget the fact that Jared Goff didn't pass the 50 touchdown mark in that hypothetical season. Just to complete that many passes and that much pass completion percentage, that would be crazy. That's why I'm trying to make that argument there, is again to show Jared Goff's quality is what separates him from the quantitative measurement of Peyton Manning, and it's what surpasses him from the quality that Kurt Warner had. That's why the Lions offense, even though it's a step down from the Broncos 2013 offense, it's a step up over the 1999 Rams offense. So, okay, done a huge deep dive into all that. But what about the other components of the offense? It's not just the quarterbacks, I know that. Well, then I decided to say, okay, let's take a look at the lead rushers and the leading receivers for each team. This we're going to go through rather quickly, but again, you're going to get a very clear picture here. Take a look at the freaking 3 running backs for each team, which is Gibbs, Marshall Faulk, and Knowshon Moreno. This is going to blow your mind. When you take a look at the comparative analysis for the 16 games that Gibbs played and the 16 games that Marshall Faulk played, it's almost mirror imaging except for rushing touchdowns. Freaking Jahmyr Gibbs ranked 16th in rush attempts. Freaking Marshall Faulk ranked 14th in rush attempts. They're only separated by about 25 actual attempts. You take a look at the yards. Marshall Faulk ranked 5th. Jahmyr Gibbs ranked 6th. Again, only separated by about 100 actual yards. Freaking Jahmyr Gibbs ranked 3rd in rush average. Marshall Faulk ranked 1st in rush average. They're only separated by 0.1 on average a rush. Again, the only thing that's a massive difference is that Jahmyr Gibbs had 13 rushing touchdowns to Marshall Faulk's only 7. Think about that. Freaking Jahmyr Gibbs is matching toe for toe, point for point, stride for stride with one of the greatest running backs of all time. I mean, Marshall Faulk is a Hall of Fame running back, and there's a good reason he is. Then you take a look at Knowshon Moreno, which the only reason I didn't include him in that is because Knowshon Moreno really wasn't all that great of a running back. He was just adequate. But even in the one season with the Broncos, his numbers actually line up pretty decently. He was ranked 13th in rush attempts, ranked 12th in rushing yards, tied 18th in rush average, tied 4th in rushing touchdowns. So he wasn't a great running back, but he was sufficient. He was decent for what the freaking Broncos needed. Again, when you have Peyton Manning throwing the football, you don't really need a great running back. That's what Knowshon Moreno provided. Okay then, that's interesting. But here's where the comparison and the mirror imaging of the 1999 Rams and the 2024 Lions, it gets even more eerie. It gets even more weird. Take a look at where Amon-Ra St. Brown and J-Mo were at in their first 16 games versus Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt in their 16 games in 1999. I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen in terms of a spreadsheet because, dude, the numbers are just absolutely crazy. When you take a look at it, freaking Isaac Bruce and Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're almost identical in terms of receiving yards. They're also perfectly identical in receiving touchdowns. Now, Isaac Bruce definitely had a much larger catch per average because he was more of a deep threat than Amon-Ra St. Brown. But Amon-Ra St. Brown is more of a catch machine. The guy just catches the football no matter where it's thrown to him. So that's Amon-Ra St. Brown and Isaac Bruce. But take a look at J-Mo and take a look at Torrey Holt. Both of these guys, 52 receptions. Both of these guys, less than 1,000 receiving yards, but again, still pretty good. Both of them had huge pass per average perceptions, or catch perceptions. Catch per average, sorry. Jamo's was a little bit higher. But again, both of them have not as many touchdowns. Dude, I'm telling you, it is eerie how freaking similar the 1999 Rams offense is in terms of the running backs, in terms of the wide receivers, in terms of the quarterbacks and the efficiency they operated at. Dude, it's just unbelievable how uncanny eerie those two teams, those two offenses are. Then we get to the Broncos again. The Broncos, again, they're a little bit out on their own there, but you take a look at Thomas and you take a look at Decker, both of those guys had excellent seasons in 2013, which, again, when you have Peyton Manning throw you the football, that's going to happen. So my whole point is this. Why did I go to such lengths to describe and explain the offenses? Here's why. The Lions offense is almost a carbon copy in terms of the production, both qualitative and quantitative, to the 1999 Rams' greatest show on turf. Think about that. That is saying something. We've talked about how the Lions are greatest show on turf 2.0, but when you actually take a look at the damn numbers, it backs it up exponentially. So there's that. Now, obviously, we can't just talk about the offense here if we're going to talk about how the Lions are quite literally a team that just is in awe, as a team that the NFL is in awe of. We have to talk about the defense. Well, let's take a look at the Lions defense versus and compared to the Broncos defense in 2013 and the Rams defense in 1999. If you take a look at the Lions defense through the first 16 games they played, they were ranked 9th in points given up, which is pretty good. It's still top 10. They were ranked 5th in pass completion percentage given up, which again, pretty good. They were pretty good for the most part in virtually every area of their defense. The only areas they weren't really good in was yards per play given up, and the reason for that is because they were ranked 31st in passing yards given up. But virtually everything else is within a decent measurement, or we're talking like top 10 measurement. So for those that wanted to say and continue to say that the Lions defense is not good, I'm sorry, the stats just don't back it up. So that's the Lions defense this year, at least for the first 16 games. What about the Broncos for their 2013 season? This is where things go truly off the rails here if you're wanting to talk about the difference between the Lions and the Broncos in their respective seasons. Even though the Broncos had a much more prolific offense than the Lions defense is substantially better than the Broncos defense was in 2013. Take a look at the numbers. The only area really that the Broncos had that was really good was either one, their completion percentage that they allowed to quarterbacks, or the freaking rushing average, or fourth down conversion percentage. But everything else, you're talking about it being practically within the middle of the pack towards the bottom of the league. That's part of the reason why I believe the Broncos were not able to win in the Super Bowl. It's because, listen, for all of the firepower their offense had, their defense couldn't keep up with the Seahawks when they went and played them. And that's where they truly lost. But take a look at the Rams defense in 1999. The 1999 Rams defense is substantially better than the freaking Broncos defense in 2013. It's also better than the Lions defense this year, but it's not massively better. It's decently better, but it's not like it's a huge night and day difference here, folks. The Lions defense the Lions defense this year is actually a pretty close representation of almost what the 1999 Rams defense was. I mean, you're talking about a defense that is, again, very good at stopping points. Both teams were good at that. Both teams were very good at stopping quarterbacks because the completion percentages at the time are ridiculously low. So are the passing touchdowns. So was the passer rating. So you're talking about a defense in both the 1999 Rams and in the 2024 Lions that they do share some similarities. So again, the comparison I'm trying to make here is that, listen, the Lions have some comparisons that you could make to the 2013 Broncos, which is the most prolific offense of all time. But if you want to talk about the team that they are most comparable to, it's the 1999 Rams. They play on turf, greatest show on turf 2.0, freaking offensive production matches up virtually across the board, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, total, freaking the defenses are almost in the same ballpark. I mean, it's just freaking eerie how this looks. It's crazy how this looks. And just to bring the point home a little bit further, I then decided to do this. I wanted to show you guys all just how damn good the Lions defense was in 2024 compared to the 1999 Rams defense when they played. So I decided to take a look at the completion percentage in terms of the average of that year versus what the team gave up, and also the passer rating that the team gave up in terms of the defense, and also the overall national average, and then do the exact opposite on offense. Take a look at this. This is going to really blow your mind. When you take a look at the defense for completion percentage and passer rating given up, you're going to notice just the sheer difference that the Lions and the Rams had compared to the national average at the time. The Lions were almost 3 points lower in completion percentage. The freaking Rams almost 4 points lower in completion percentage. The same thing's true for the same thing is true for passer rating. Lions are almost 8.5 points lower in passer rating. The freaking Rams were 13 points lower. So that's the defense. You're seeing just how damn prolifically, damn suffocating these defenses are in terms of stopping quarterbacks, as far as completion percentage and passer rating. Now you flip over to the offensive side of the ball. Notice this one. Take a look at the Lions in terms of where they are in their completion percentage versus the average of the NFL at the time, and the same with the Rams. The Lions are 6.5% above the average this year. In 1999, the Rams were 7.6% above the average. In 1999, oh my lord, the freaking Rams were 29.5 points higher than the national average for passer rating at the time. And the Detroit Lions this year, 22.2 points higher. I mean, dude, you want to talk about a strong damn correlation? I've literally laid out the argument. The Lions are quite literally the greatest show on turf 2.0. They are the same type of offense. They run the West Coast offense. They have prolifically efficient quarterbacks. They have great running backs that can also catch out of the backfield, because Marshall Faulk was known for that as well. We have 2 wide receivers, just like the freaking, Rams did, that were great. But at the time, they still had yet to get things fully running. Now the Lions have theirs. And then, oh, by the way, while the Rams defense is a little bit better than the Lions is this year, there's still a lot of strong correlations. There's still a lot of strong comparisons. That's why I'm saying, the last time that people wanted to talk about the 1999 Rams offense, it was like, dude, as if it was the best thing ever. When you get called the greatest show on turf, that right there tells you the kind of respect that kind of an offense has. I mean, let's think about it for what it is. For as great as the Broncos offense was, I don't really remember them having a really prolific nickname or catchy nickname to go with it. I know there were nicknames for Peyton Manning as the Sheriff, and the fact that he was the Omaha King, but there's not really much of a nickname that I remember for their offense. But everybody remembers the greatest show on turf, and it was for a damn good reason, because nobody could stop them, either in terms of defense or in terms of offense. The Lions, it's hard as hell to stop them offensively, and defensively, they will find ways to stop you, just like how the Rams did the same in 1999. I'm telling you, folks, there's a reason why I go to such in-depth, research with this stuff, because the deeper you dig, the more interesting it gets. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance in the past you forgot to do this at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. The more we do it, the greater the channel can grow and spread. And with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the content. I hope you all got something out of it. Whether this is your first time watching me or you guys have been watching me forever and a day, I hope everybody truly enjoyed it. Hope you all have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.